when I went to bars to pick up women, the first thing that they asked me was, "What do you do?" To which I replied, "I'm screwing you over." Yes, oh my gosh, indeed. Now, the reason I told them that was because I was a corporate tax lawyer. And folks, let me tell you something, I screwed the hell out of them. Because it was my job to make sure that the government gets zero, as little as possible, from any corporation. And I represented Israel's largest corporations. Now, this is something that is huge. It affects all of us, because corporations do not pay taxes. We do not collect enough from them. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how people like me basically screw everybody else. And we're going to talk about how it affects all of us, individuals and society. I'm going to explain how corporations avoid from paying taxation, some of the methods, and then we'll see what we can do about it, hopefully. So, well, you know, Mr. Whiskers, I'm not talking about raising the tax level. Tax rate in the US is 35%, one of the highest tax rates in the Western world. In fact, it should be the highest. The problem is that corporations pay on average 12%. Now that's a third. What happens when corporations pay 12%? Well, there's a gap. You see, there really isn't enough money for the administration. There's not enough money to pay social workers. Not enough money to pay for the fixing of the road on the I-405. Tuition prices go up, and they always expect the individual to pay for it. Why? Because there's a gap. And guess, friends, who picks up the gap? Because the government has to sustain itself. So we can't have too many pricey things, but it has to sustain itself. So who picks up the gap? Exactly, you do. Because individuals pay 5 times more taxes than corporations. This is from the IRS website. It's not hard to find. You guys pay for the gap the corporations make. Now, what I'm going to talk about now is I'm going to talk about how corporations avoid taxation. Very, very high level. This is very, very complicated stuff. There's a reason why corporations pay a lot of money to tax consultants. Billions of dollars if you calculate it worldwide. And if you want to go in depth with me outside, it would be great. But right now I'm going to go just a little bit to show you what we do. First thing that we do, we ship all of the money out of the country. We create a subsidiary in the Bahamas, in the Cayman Islands, anywhere that a good old-fashioned lawyer can come and scuba dive for a couple of weeks. We give this guy the corner office. As you can see, it's lovely. We tell him that he's the chairman of the board and that he calls the shots. No, he doesn't. We call the shots. And we basically make the subsidiary of the company in the Bahamas the owner of the IP, of the R&D, of everything that has to do with the source of income of the company. That's how the money goes into the Bahamas or Luxembourg. We pay there 4 or 5% taxation, and the money can stay there because the corporation on top doesn't really care, because the Bahamas subsidiary can use it to buy airplanes and hotel rooms for the CEOs of the companies above. We don't really need the money, it can stay there. Now, public companies sometimes do need the money because they want to give it to the shareholders. That's why we use either those tax shelters, or another thing we can do is to go to the best tax shelter, best legal tax shelter in the world, Europe. Ireland and the Netherlands are tax havens. If any of you read about Apple and what they did lately, which is, by the way, it's not, the media put it as something new. I did it myself with a lot of companies. You create a subsidiary in Ireland, put another company above it in the Netherlands, another company above it back in Ireland, and I won't explain the entire mechanism, but guess what? You save half your taxes. Apple saved $2.5 billion last year just for doing that little trick. Who gets screwed? You do, because the money does not go to the US. It stays out. That's what we do. That's why I told them that I'm, oh my gosh, screwing you. And by the way, it's really a lovely thing because diving in the Cayman Islands is beautiful. I recommend it to everybody. Second thing that we do, we find a malfunctioning corporation that has lots and lots of losses, and we buy them. In case you didn't know, losses are assets. Now, why is that? I can take the malfunctioning corporation, we won't call it by its name. Let's say it has $100 billion of losses. Now, since it's malfunctioning, I can buy it cheap. Let's say for $1 billion. Okay? It has $100 billion of losses, which I can use for the next 20 years to wash off my profits. Isn't it great? Now, there are limitations about it. And the US, by the way, is one of the best countries that limits this kind of bracket. But guys, it's wonderful. I get the company to wash off debts, to wash off profits for 20 years. And we do it all the time. And by the way, folks, the tax code, 73,000 pages long, gives a lot of brackets and a lot of opportunities to use it. Not just with losses, with everything. The more litigation there is, the more tax loopholes I can find. And by the way, we're going to get to how that happens. Another way is stock options. Let me explain what happens when you give a stock option. Let's say I'm the employee. Usually it will be the executive. I get a stock option when the price of the share is worth 10. I cash it out when it's worth 17. Company lost 7, right? Right. Guess what? That 7, that's deductible. That means that you and I walk hand in hand with the corporation to the IRS, and we help pay for the money it gives its executives to do the options. And by the way, some of the corporations, I've got it down real smart. You know, remember when I said when I gave the option at 10 to my employee? In their books, it's written as 2. So that the loss is 15, not 7. Now seriously, are you not feeling screwed yet? This is happening at your expense. And if you want to know how much money in options are washed off, it's beyond $20 billion in this country alone. Another thing that corporations do is give money to lobbyists and to politicians in general. Now, the speaker is right. Companies do create jobs. Does it have anything to do with taxation? No. Citizens for Just Taxation released this November a very detailed paper about 280 of the S&P 500 and the way that they are taxed, and the number and the amount of taxes that they paid. Of those 280, 30 companies paid a whopping average of 0% in the last 3 years, including DuPont, Yahoo, Wells Fargo, who made $50 billion in profit, Boeing, $9.5 billion in profit. Tax they paid, 0. How many employees did they added, all 30 companies, during those 3 years? Exactly, 0. In fact, they laid off 50,000 people. Tax brackets do help some companies when they're starting up to hire employees, but they sure as hell don't help those who are established and those who make the real money. And by the way, it's not just the Speaker or Republicans. Democrats get the same amount of money, have the same kind of lobbyists. It works both ways. My favorite is donations. This is really beautiful. There is a certain toy company in Southern California. It makes Barbies, which on its financial reports says something amazing. We give 2% of our net income to donations. And that's huge. More than twice the average of other companies. They give money. There is one little thing that they forgot to mention. During the last 3 years, they paid an average tax of 0%. Now, when they give donations, somebody comes over and takes their pictures. It's PR. They give money to hospitals, animal shelters, social workers. When you and I pay taxes, nobody asks us anything. When I pay tax, nobody comes and takes my picture. I don't make any profit of it. I don't make anything of a PR of it. And not only that, nobody asks me what the money is for. Nobody asks you if you want to give to animal shelters. Nobody asks you if you want to give to hospitals or kids with cancer. Nobody. You think they would contribute to the average sewer man or the garbage disposal guys? No. They give to stuff that are high profile and they're beautiful and it makes your soul feel good. But it's something that you and I cannot do. If they would pay the 35% tax rate, do you really think they would give donations like that? Well, maybe they would. You know why? Because donations, they're deductible. And nobody tells you that when they do this. PR, deductibility, and they get to choose who they pay for. Now, my main point here is that this issue concerns all of us. It's not about evil corporate America. And it's not about Gordon Gekko wannabes. It's not. Companies just do what you and I want to do. They want to pay the least amount of tax, which is wonderful. That's why, by the way, when people ask me, well, you talk about taxation and how we should take more taxes from corporations, how did you do it if you were so against it? I don't have any ethical or moral problem with it. It's legal. We bend the law. We don't break it. It's all legal, and it's all at your expense. They want to take for themselves the least amount of taxes. So do you. But they have the means to do it. You don't. You don't. They get away with it, and you don't. It takes an obscene amount of money to make this happen. The Fortune 100 companies are estimated to put more money in lobbying than they do in taxes. CEOs spend most of their time in Washington than they do in their office. Now, of course, you and I can't do that, but they can. This is something that should really tick you off. Seriously. I think you should write to your congressman, to your senator, to your president, and tell them, I am mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Say it with me. It will make you feel good. I am mad as hell. Folks, I am mad as hell. Oh, come on, we're Israelis. I am mad as hell. And I'm not going to take it anymore. Thank you.